today, as racism and racial inequality persist as deep-rooted issues in various societies. It was not until after 4 centuries of cruelty and suffering that Christians and the church decided to give slavery a deep thought. This came after hundreds of years of benefiting from it. When the abolitionism movement began to bring an end to slavery, it had both philosophical reasons and religious elements. Throughout Europe and the United States, Christians, usually from non-institutional Christian faith movements, not directly connected with traditional state churches, or nonconformist believers within established churches, were to be found at the forefront of the abolitionist movements. In particular, the effects of the Second Great Awakening resulted in many evangelicals working to see the theoretical Christian view that all people are essentially equal, made more of a practical reality. Freedom of expression within the Western world also helped in enabling opportunity to express their position. Prominent among these abolitionists was parliamentarian William Wilberforce in England, who wrote in his diary when he was 28 that, "God Almighty has set before me 2 great objects, the suppression of the slave trade and reformation of morals." With others he labored, despite determined opposition, to finally abolish the slave trade. The famous English preacher Charles Spurgeon had some of his sermons burned in America due to his censure of slavery, calling it the foulest blot, and which may have to be washed out in blood. Methodist founder John Wesley denounced human bondage as the sum of all villainies, and detailed its abuses. In Georgia, primitive Methodists united with brethren elsewhere in condemning slavery. Many evangelical leaders in the United States, such as Presbyterian Charles Finney and Theodore Weld, and women such as Harriet Beecher Stowe, who was the daughter of abolitionist Lyman Beecher, and Sojourner Truth, motivated hearers to support abolition. Finney preached that slavery was a moral sin, and so supported its elimination. Quakers, who belonged to the Religious Society of Friends, a historically Protestant Christian set of denominations, were early leaders in abolitionism. In 1688, Dutch Quakers in Germantown, Pennsylvania, sent an anti-slavery petition to the monthly meeting of Quakers. By 1727, British Quakers had expressed their official disapproval of the slave trade. 3 Quaker abolitionists, Benjamin Lay, John Woolman, and Anthony Benezet, devoted their lives to the abolitionist effort from the 1730s to the 1760s, with Lay founding the Negro School in 1770, which would serve more than 250 pupils. In June 1783, a petition from the London Yearly Meeting and signed by over 300 Quakers was presented to Parliament protesting the slave trade. In 1787, the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade was formed, with 9 of the 12 founder members being Quakers. During the same year, William Wilberforce was persuaded to take up their cause. As a member of Parliament of the United Kingdom, Wilberforce was able to introduce a bill to abolish the slave trade. Wilberforce first attempted to abolish the trade in 1791, but could only muster half the necessary votes. However, after transferring his support to the Whigs, it became an election issue. Abolitionist pressure had changed popular opinion, and in the 1806 election, enough abolitionists entered Parliament for Wilberforce to be able to see the passing of the Slave Trade Act of 1807. The Royal Navy subsequently declared that the slave trade was equal to piracy, with the West Africa Squadron choosing to seize ships involved in the transfer of slaves and liberate the slaves on board, effectively crippling the transatlantic trade.